Join me today for another campaign inspiration video as we talk about a couple of things, namely the thing and the thing. Trust me, it'll all make sense here in a minute. This is the Geek Cabal channel. My name is Bobbie, and today we're going to be talking about two different movies to draw inspiration from for your campaign. And in this case, they both share the same title. One of them is from the 80s, made by John Carpenter, starring Kurt Russell, called The Thing. And the other is from 2011, starring Mary Elizabeth Winstead, also called The Thing. You know, not to confuse anyone or anything, but the latter one, is a prequel to the former one. So again, not to confuse anybody or anything. And the former is actually something of a remake of another movie called The Thing from Another World that we're not really going to be talking about much because I've never watched it. Although it's on my list now. So I have recently done videos on both of these movies, which will be linked to at various points up above here. If I can find decent pictures of the creature that I'm going to be discussing here, I'll try to put them in over here as I'm going through, and they might take up the whole screen for a moment or whatever. But we're going to be focusing a lot on the creature and a little about the plots, but mainly the creature as an idea of something you can use in your campaign. Now, these two movies focus on an alien creature that crash landed on Earth. They estimate the movie 100,000 years ago. In a flying saucer, crash landed in Antarctica. The creature crawled out of the wreckage and froze in the ice. Now, we ultimately know nothing about the background of this creature. It is entirely possible that this thing is not part of a spacefaring race, and in fact, some poor alien schmuck landed on its home world. It got consumed, taken over, what have you, by the creature, and then the creature took off in its ship. Now, that's just personal supposition. I don't know if that's true. Might not be true. There's nothing that points to saying that is true. There's nothing that points to saying being false either. So here we are. Okay. So if you want to know the major plot summaries of these two movies, you can watch my other videos. I'm not going to recount everything here. Just note that again, this takes place in Antarctica. One group of researchers in the 2011 movie finds the ship and the creature. Almost all of them die as the creature wreaks havoc. And then it's a prequel to the one from the 80s by John Carpenter. And the creature then finds its way to their base, and again, chaos ensues. And it's unclear if anyone survives that one, because it is a very open-ended ending. So, what's this all about then? Well, like I said, watch the other videos if you want to know the plot. We're going to talk about the creature. The creature, the two movies kind of focus on different aspects. The creature itself is capable of shapeshifting. It can produce limbs and organs and whatnot seemingly out of nowhere with its mass. We really see that in full effect in the finale of the original movie, where one of the people turns into a gigantic creature. Although he had probably absorbed a couple other people at that point to gain the mass, it's unclear. And then in the prequel, one of the people actually loses limbs and then generates new ones and then absorbs another guy into him to make himself an even larger creature. So it can produce limbs at will, and it can also produce specific limbs. Like bladed things, tentacles. It goes for kind of like an insect, spider-like appearance a lot of times. It's unclear what this thing's actual natural appearance is, because we mainly see it, absorbing other things and transforming, and we never really get like an absolutely crystal clear vision of what it looks like in its base form. And even then, that might not even be its base form. That might have been the poor schmuck alien that it absorbed and transformed into and then stole its ship, if that chain of events even happened. So, it appears that it devours other creatures and then, like, reproduces them, either transforming itself into that shape or creating another creature from itself. And in the prequel, it definitely does that, because there's definitely moments where there's more than one thing at a time. There has to be, for what certain things that happen. So clearly, it has the ability to, like, absorb someone and then create a copy of that someone that's really another version of it. It is unclear if this thing is a hive mind or not, or if these are like literally its spawn, or what, But they all seem to have a drive to get back to the ship and take off, or replicate everybody. So, but since it is incapable of speech, at least as far as we know, uh, although it speaks when it's imitating a human, it never like elaborates on anything. It just pretends to be the person. So in the original movie, it can also just infect people and take them over. Like they'll get like material on them, like it'll bite them, or they'll somehow ingest some material from the body, and all of its cells are like this. Like once they get inside, they begin taking over the other person's cells and then replicating them. And I suppose it is also possible that someone could be the thing and not actually know it. Uh, this is one of those like kind of background possibilities that may or may not be a thing. Okay, so what does all this have to do with Dungeons and Dragons or whatever other role playing game you're going to be playing? Well, these creatures are very similar to doppelgangers and mimics in various ways. So, a doppelganger will replace a person. I believe they eat their brain and then gain all their memories and everything. And then they physically transform into them so they can take their place somewhere. And I think they can store a certain number of personalities or something. It's been a while since I read the lore on the doppelgangers, but it's similar in conception to a doppelganger. But also similar to a mimic, where a mimic pretends to be an object, but is in fact a monster with lots and lots of sharp teeth and a massive tongue and things like that. And well, the thing tends to transform into very horrific, tooth-filled maws with an alarming frequency. So, like, kind of like a mimic, except it's a person that's really this horrific monster inside. So you kind of have both things going at the same time. It has the apparent intelligence of the mimic. I don't know if it knows the person's memories that it copied. We don't have any reason to believe that it does, because the people that we know that it copied seem to be very seem to be exercising brevity in their speech and communication with everyone else. They're very short to the point, and they don't elaborate on a bunch of things, and they tend to just very simple sentences. So I don't know if that's a matter of it's just trying to maintain the illusion, so it doesn't want to get into a thorough conversation where it's not going to know what to say, or if it is actually just a simple creature and doesn't absorb the memories, and so it's just like kind of learning everything through osmosis as it's being around everybody. It's hard to say because again the movies don't elaborate on this. So you, however, as the dungeon master, can incorporate the idea that the doppelganger uses of absorbing their memories. But I would use this as a separate creature. Now maybe it is some kind of variant doppelganger. Maybe it's one that's somehow crossbred with a mimic. Maybe it's a mimic who gained intelligence, who then took on the form of a doppelganger, somehow gained its abilities, and is now a merging of the two. Or maybe it's a magical combination of the two. But in essence, what you have is you have the deceptive ability of the mimic. So it can go in, pretend to be some person, but at a certain point, it's going to split open into just giant teeth and a gaping maw and tentacles and everything else. Uh, so I mean, there's also a little bit of like mind flayer kind of stuff going on here, and the whole like it can infect other people thing. So you've got bits and pieces from various monsters that are all kind of rolled into one. And if it were me using it, I would go with that it's trying to spread. Maybe that it does have either like a hive mind or like the one singular one is the controlling one, and it is taking over people and replicating them like an invasion of the body snatchers. Um, Except instead of a separate body, it's their body, and instead of being a separate like alien intelligence, it's just like a copy of the main thing. And that if the central one is killed, then the rest just kind of become their own separate nodes with independent function and try to go around doing their thing. It's up to you, obviously. Well, I mean, it's all up to you, obviously. But for me, I would keep the cosmic aspect. Have it be something that's not of this world. It's an alien intelligence whose goals and desires beyond spreading are completely unknown to the player characters. Is it trying to spread to gather resources to leave? Does it want to get back home? Does it want to conquer the world? Uh, did it land and somehow pick up magic? Or again, you could go with like it's a magically made hybrid, in which case it may serve another master somewhere. But yeah, I like I said, I would use it that way. So in your campaign, I would use it kind of like as a twist on a normal doppelganger. So they'll be expecting to fight this creature that can look like someone else, and it's got other abilities. But they're not going to expect that whenever you chop its arm off, all of a sudden its arm is going to grow legs and come after you too. And then like tentacles are going to come sprouting out of the arm socket. And then, its head's going to split open and turn into a giant tooth filled cavity that's going to try to suck you in with its tentacles and devour you. Like, they're not going to be expecting that. And they're going to think it's just a straight up humanoid and not this, star spawned horror that they're going to have to fight. And again, it's up to you as to like how intelligent it is and what its goal is. Maybe it's going to try to reason with the players and be like, hey, look, I don't fully understand how you people work. I've taken over some of you. They're basically dead, and now they're drones for me. But I just want to get the hell out of here. Help me, and I'll be out of your hair. Or like, well, that was my goal, but I kind of like it here. I'd like it a lot more if everyone was me. And so you got to stop it from spreading. And it could also be a recurring villain because there's no guarantee you're going to get all the drones when you go to kill the main one. And if even one survives, like, you're going to have a problem on your hands. Especially since it can also imitate animals. Like, you're going to be sitting there, you think you've killed it, and oh, what about that rat that you missed over there? Oh, that was one of them. And now it's going out in the forest, and it's going to turn all the woodland creatures into other versions of it. And, next thing you know, there's some blight upon the land, and it'd be a very apocalyptic life form to try to fight if you like just really went with it. And yeah, so those are definitely some ideas. I would definitely say to watch the two movies. Now, as I mentioned in both those video reviews, though, just to be clear, these are not movies for kids. So, if you're like 12 and you're watching this video, which I don't know why you are, but if you are, probably best to not watch those movies. You might want to wait till you're a little bit older. Now, if you're in, 13, 14, I mean, they're gruesome, but you've probably seen worse by now anyway. So, you're probably fine there. Like, there's no like weird sex stuff or anything. But and the first one is a horror classic, and the second one's good too. You know, it's not quite on the level as the original, but it's pretty good. So yeah, I'd check those out, get some ideas. Now, from a plot perspective, if you want to see how to handle like inducing paranoia in people, where you do just use a regular doppelganger or something like that, or like a someone controlled by a mind flayer or whatever, or a an intellect devourer going for a ride in someone's body. Um, you can definitely use these movies to see how to try to induce the paranoia. You know, the kinds of things you can do to start like throwing people off the track, to start like guiding people towards certain suspects that you know are not really involved, things like that. So from that perspective, these movies are also good for that. Um, and also showing like, you know, how you can do it just by being in a desolate location. So, you know, there's a lot to be learned from these movies that you can use in your campaigns. Is what I'm trying to tell you. So, yeah, that's about all I got for this one. Let me know if you guys agree, disagree. You know, have you ever used creatures like this in your campaigns? Have you taken inspiration from either of these movies? Or what other movies have you taken inspiration from? Or books have you taken inspiration from? And, you know, I mean, beyond the obvious, like, there's hundreds of Dungeons and Dragons novels. Any one of them could give you ideas. And they are full of good ideas, by the way. Um, so if you ever want inspiration, you don't have any place else to look there. But yeah, that's about all I got to say on this. So, you know, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Sharing and commenting are the best ways to help us grow the channel. We always appreciate it. But other than that, that's all I got to say. So just, you know, watch out for those carnivorous shape shifting aliens out there.